Hey everybody, it's Kathy. Welcome to episode 33 of Mondays on the Mat, coming to you live from my office/yoga room. Today's question came from Anna, who last week in class was asking, when I do Cobra pose, should my legs be completely together or hips distance apart? And I annoyingly answered her, yes, because both of those are correct. And I'm going to give you a little bit about why those are correct, and then we're going to dive right down to the mat today and do a little bit of experimentation. Yoga is like the world's oldest R&D department, and your research subject is yourself. And Cobra pose, like almost all of the other yoga poses, there are different ways of doing it to get a slightly different result in the body. And one way is not better than another. One way is not right or wrong. And it really depends on your physical body and what result you're looking for in general, or even on a given day. Or if you're a yoga instructor, you would be asking yourself, like, why is Cobra pose in this sequence? What's it guiding my students towards physically or energetically? And so it's nice to know a couple of the different ways of doing Cobra pose and the results that it provides. Before we jump down onto the mat, I do want to address the leg question because it's a really good, valid question. Generally speaking, Cobra pose is taught with the legs all the way together. So if those are my legs, completely like that. But this is also the same with Tadasana, right? Tadasana is taught with the legs completely together generally. I teach primarily yoga to women, and I am a woman. And if you go back and check out episode 3 of Mondays on the Mat, I address the fact that the male and female pelvis are shaped differently, and the female pelvis is a little bit wider apart bone-wise, which means that our legs sit a little bit wider apart. And for many women, myself included, when we consistently practice with the legs together in poses like Tadasana and Cobra and chair pose, Utkatasana, and then we bring the legs back to hips distance apart for other postures, we get a lot of clicking and clacking in the hips and the knees and the ankles as the ligaments slide over the joints. And sometimes it's just annoying, and sometimes it's a little more uncomfortable. It can even be painful. And what I have found in my practice and in teaching women is that if we keep our legs frontal hip bone distance apart, that tends to reduce that clicky, clacky, icky thing. So while yes, Cobra pose is traditionally taught legs together, I personally teach it with the legs a little bit apart. And by a little bit, I mean like 4 inches, 5 maybe. It's not a lot. So if you take Tadasana and you just plop it right down there on your stomach, you're basically in Tadasana lying on the floor to set yourself up for Cobra pose. One thing to keep in mind, when the legs are together, it forces the feet into pretty nice alignment. When we bring the legs apart, what tends to happen sometimes is the outer ankles push out and the big toes angle in. So you just want to make sure that you're squeezing your inner ankles in and lengthening out through the big toes if you're choosing to keep the legs apart. But what we're going to do is experiment and decide for yourself which is best. So you can get down on your mat with me right now, or if you want to watch the variations and then try it later, you can definitely do that. So let's head down to the floor. Let me move the camera down so we get a little bit of a better angle from the floor. And just know, you guys, hey, know that my legs are going to kind of go off camera, and that's just kind of the nature of the size of the room that I'm working in. But I'll talk to you about what I'm doing with my legs as we go along. And I'm not thrilled with where I've got the camera placed, so I'm just going to turn it a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so Cobra pose is a back bend. And so the primary intention of back bends is to lengthen the front body and strengthen the back body, except when we lie them down on our bellies on the floor. Belly back bends changes it to where the primary intention is to strengthen the back body and then lengthen the front body. And by strengthen the back body, I mean the extensors of the spine, Those are the ones that lift you up and back, as well as the hips and legs. So if our primary intention is to strengthen the back body, let's play around. So one of the things that really is different about the variations of Cobra pose is the placement of the hands, as well as my personal variation of the legs. So for right now, let's decide that the legs are frontal hip bone distance apart a few inches, and they're firm. So I know you can't see my feet, but I'm pressing them down, and as you see I press them down, you're going to see my legs get strong and engaged. So some versions of Cobra pose say hands underneath your shoulders. And so if you put your hands underneath your shoulders and you start to press up, what can happen is the shoulders roll forward. And so you'll see the arc of the back isn't very strong. Even if you roll your shoulders back and down with the hands forward, you can see my shoulders are starting to collapse in and down. Even though we're strengthening first, we still want a long open front body. So try that. Put your hands right underneath your shoulders and start to push up with your hands. And first of all, feel that if you push with your hands, you don't need to use the muscles of your back at all. What if you lifted your hands, lifted from your back body, then put the hands down? You'll get more of the strengthening in the back as well as the arms. But again, with the hands forward, you can see I'm trying to pull my shoulders back, but they're still wanting to drop forward. So if you bring the hands back a little bit further, I'm going to say in line with the rib cage as opposed to the breast. So just a little bit further back. And you lift your shoulder heads up and back. And then again, lift first from the muscles of your spine and then press with your hands. You're going to get more of the opening in the chest as well as strengthening the body, the back body, excuse me. Okay, so now Cobra pose has baby cobra where you're lifting primarily from the spine and lifting the chest a little. But full Cobra pose comes all the way up until you're resting on your pubic bone. So let me turn to you really quick so you can see. When you get into full Cobra pose and you're lifting up and back, the weight is about here across your frontal hip bones and pubic bone, trying to get the lower belly and everything else up off the floor. Okay, so if we start with the hands a little bit further back, press strong into the legs and curl all the way up to your pubic bone, there's still more choices because one choice is to push the hands forward. Watch what happens when I push the hands forward. You can see my chest lifts so much higher and I feel a lot of pressure in my low back. Okay, so that's one option. The other option is as you lift up to pull backwards with your hands. And can you see that? When I pull backwards with my hands, my chest moves more forward through my arms. Here's the thing. One is not better than the other. They're just different. And that's why I want you to get down on your mat and play with this a little bit. So we're going to do like 4 different choices. First, bring your legs all the way together. And press them down so they're strong. Have your hands like underneath your shoulders. Lift from your spine. Press into your hands to come up higher and then push forward with the hand. You'll feel your chest lift and the compression more in, not compression, sensation in your low back. Legs together. Lower down a little bit. Roll the shoulders back. Come up high. Pull your hands back, legs together. And then lower down. So just decide how those two felt in your body. I don't know what it feels like to live inside your body, so I can't tell you which one is better for you or not. You need to feel it, okay? So then, same thing, legs a little bit apart. Hands underneath your shoulders. Lift from the muscles of your back. Then press into your hands, pull the hands back, feel that? Press your hands forward, feel that? And then lower down. Okay, so those are the 4 variations. legs together, legs apart, push, pull, hands a little bit forward. Same for variations, but with the hands back more by the rib cage or even the waist. Okay, so lift from the muscles of your spine. Legs are apart. Push into your hands, lift yourself up. Pull, heart forward. Push, hands back. Okay, so we did it backwards this time. I did leg apart variation first. It's fine. Come down, bring your legs together. Press the feet into the floor. Same thing. Lift from the muscles of your spine. Press into your hands so you're up as high as your pubic bone. Push the hands forward. Pull the hands back. And lower yourself, again, all the way down. One is not better than the other. One thing to be aware of, let me spin towards the camera so you can see this. When the hands are pretty far forward and we press high, this thing starts to happen where the inner edges of the hands lift and the outer edges of the hands compress, putting a lot of weight in the outer wrist. Go back and check out episode 16 of Mondays on the Mat, where I address wrist pain, alignment, and engagement so that you're safe with your wrists as you play with these Cobra variations. So when you play around, ask yourself, is my primary intention to strengthen my back, open my front body, or even strengthen my arms? Because the higher you bring up Cobra pose, the more you are going to feel engagement in the arms. None of those are the correct answer, or they're all the correct answer, and it's really up to you to decide in your personal practice what's the intention. When you go to class, I would recommend going with what the teacher is recommending, because chances are the teacher has a purpose for why the version of Cobra pose they're teaching is in their sequence. And if you're not sure, of course, you can always ask a question after class. If you're working with an injury or a limitation, then of course you always want to modify your poses in a class to suit your body. And I recommend letting a teacher know ahead of time that you're making a modification so they don't come around and try to adjust or correct your pose towards what they're working with the group in general if it's not appropriate for you. One last note, I did see in one of my books a version of Cobra pose, this really high Cobra pose, where the hands were actually placed all the way back, almost by the pelvis. And I thought that was really fascinating. You can see in my body, my hands don't even go flat to the ground until I peel way high up and then drag forward. And to me, in this body, that does not work because my hands, look, I need to use my backhand to lift me up. My hand is so far back from my shoulder in that version, I feel like I'm losing any semblance of engagement to support the posture. So I'm going to recommend, but again, you get to play around, that wherever you are with the hands, you don't want them so far back behind you that they're behind the shoulders. So any place where as you rise up into these higher Cobras, your hands are under your shoulders, or you're going to see lots of versions where they're forward of the shoulders. And again, this is fine as long as you're opening and lifting the chest and not dropping the shoulders forward. So, Anna, that is a very long-winded answer to the question of should my legs be together or apart in Cobra pose? And the answer is yes. Should my hands be under my shoulders or by my rib cage? Yes. You get to play around and decide what works best for you. Again, just keep in mind, strengthen back body, open front body, little bit of arm strengthening in there kind of at the end. So decide which one works for your body and which one helps you meet the goals or the purpose that you're seeking in your yoga practice. Hey everybody, limited schedule this week, which is the week of October 16. Classes are on Tuesday and Wednesday only from 5:30 to 7 both days. Questions or comments, of course, throw them down here even if you're watching this after the fact. I'm always happy to clarify anything that needs clarified or answer something completely on an upcoming episode of Mondays on the Mat. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a beautiful day and a great great rest of your week, and we will most likely see you next Monday. I'm going to be in Australia, so check back over on Facebook or Instagram to see if I post that we're going to be live and when that will be, because it will have it'll have a date change because Australia is a day ahead of the States. So that was a little bit awkward, but okay, we'll figure it out. And if you want to see me live from Australia, please let me know. That'll help me decide when and how I should handle that while I'm out of town. Have a great rest of your Monday. I look forward to seeing you in class Tuesday and or Wednesday, and seeing you next time we're live. Namaste.